I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's November 9th, 1995, a crisp night in Cleveland, Ohio. The Chicago Bulls are in town, but not just any Bulls team. This is the beginning of their historic 72-win season, a season that would redefine dominance in basketball. And sitting courtside that night is one man who made the worst decision of his life. But before we get to that, before we get to the heckle heard round the world, we need to rewind, because this wasn't just another Bulls game. This was Michael Jordan's first full season back after retirement. The world's greatest player was still rediscovering himself. Fans weren't sure yet if the old MJ, the ruthless assassin, the man who broke teams and spirits, was still there, or if retirement, baseball, and Hollywood had softened him. But as history would soon prove, Jordan never really lost it. He just needed the right spark. And on that November night, he found it in the form of a random fan sitting just a few feet. Now here's where it gets poetic. Jordan wasn't just wearing any shoes that night. He was debuting a pair that would go on to change sneaker culture forever. The Air Jordan 11 Concords. They were sleek, they were elegant, they were pure basketball luxury. White patent leather with icy soles. But to one man, sitting close enough to smell the sweat on Jordan's jersey, they were ugly. He didn't like them, and instead of keeping that thought to himself, he decided to tell Michael Jordan to his face. Yeah, you can already tell where this is going. This is the story of how one man's opinion about a pair of shoes turned into a personal vendetta, a scoring avalanche, and one of the most brutal lessons in NBA history. You don't talk trash to Michael Jordan, and you definitely don't insult his shoes. Cue the slow, cinematic music. The camera pans to a sold-out Cleveland Coliseum. The Bulls are warming up. Fans are buzzing. No one knows that in just a few hours, they'll witness the birth of yet another Jordan legend. One that started with an insult and ended in humiliation. Section 1. The return, the revival, and the shoes that changed everything. When Michael Jordan stepped back onto the NBA hardwood in 1995, the entire sports world held its breath. The GOAT had returned. After shocking everyone with his sudden retirement in 1993, trading basketballs for baseball bats, Jordan had left fans, teammates, and rivals wondering if they'd ever see him again in a Bulls jersey. His comeback in the 1994-95 season was legendary in its own right. A simple two-word fax that changed everything. I'm back. But as electric as that announcement was, the truth was, Jordan wasn't fully back yet. His rhythm was off, his timing felt rusty, and the Bulls, without their general for nearly 2 seasons, weren't the same powerhouse they once were. The Orlando Magic, led by a young, fearless Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, had sent Chicago packing in the 1995 playoffs. For the first time, the world had seen Michael Jordan look mortal. That summer, MJ made a promise to himself and to anyone who ever doubted him. He would never let that happen again. So he went to work, obsessed, silent, focused. He rebuilt his body, redefined his hunger, and found a new weapon, the shoe that would become the visual symbol of his return, the Air Jordan 11 Concord. Designed by Tinker Hatfield, the shoe broke every rule in sneaker design. Patent leather on a basketball shoe? That was unheard of. Most thought it was ridiculous, until they saw it on Jordan's feet. The white upper shimmered under arena lights, the translucent soles gleamed like glass, and suddenly, sneakers weren't just gear, they were status. The Air Jordan 11 wasn't just footwear, it was an announcement, a statement that MJ was no longer the same player who walked away in 1993. He was sharper, angrier, and ready to dominate again. Fans lost their minds when Nike dropped them. Lines formed outside stores before sunrise. Athletes from every sport wanted them. Even players guarding Michael Jordan were wearing his shoes. Imagine that. You're trying to stop the greatest player in history while wearing his logo on your feet. That's not just influence, that's power. And yet, in a world obsessed with owning a pair of those gleaming white Concords, one man, one very confident Cavaliers fan, decided he hated them. He wasn't impressed by the design. He didn't care about the hype. He thought they looked dumb. And when fate placed him courtside, just a few feet from Jordan himself, he made the biggest mistake of his life. But to truly understand why that one heckle mattered so much, we need to rewind to the moments leading up to that game. Because this wasn't just a regular season matchup. This was personal. Section 2, the calm before the storm. The 1995-96 NBA season was supposed to be a new beginning for both Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. But the first few games didn't exactly scream championship run. After all, Jordan was still shaking off the rust from his baseball stint. His footwork was a step slow, his timing wasn't razor sharp, and his shot, usually so automatic, looked uncertain. For the first time in a long time, Michael Jordan looked human. And if there was any fan base desperate to believe that myth, it was the Cleveland Cavaliers. For years, the Bulls had been the Cavaliers' personal nightmare. From the shot in 1989, that cold-blooded dagger over Craig Alo, to the countless regular season beatdowns that followed, Cleveland had lived under the shadow of number 23. The city had suffered enough heartbreak from Jordan to fill an entire highlight reel. But now things looked different. It was November 1995. Jordan was back, yes, but not unbeat. The Cavs were younger, faster, confident. They had guys like Chris Mills, Bobby Phills, and Danny Ferry. Players who believed they could finally hold their own. And most importantly, they had momentum. In their previous matchup, the Cavaliers had managed something they hadn't done in 2 years. They beat Michael Jordan. Sure, it was just a one-point win. Sure, it took a rare missed jumper from MJ at the buzzer. But for Cleveland fans, that was enough. It was validation, proof that the unthinkable was possible, that the god of basketball could bleed, could fail, could miss. So when the Bulls rolled into Cleveland for this early season rematch, the energy in the arena was electric. Fans filled the Coliseum with cautious hope, convinced that lightning might strike twice. Maybe, just maybe, they could beat Jordan again. Maybe the new MJ, the older post-baseball version, wasn't the same unstoppable force they remembered. Maybe this was the year the Cavs could finally exorcise their ghost. But as history has shown us, hope is a dangerous thing when Michael Jordan is in the building, especially when someone decides to test his patience. Because on that night, amid the noise, the flashing cameras, and the buzz of anticipation, sat a single fan who thought he was immune to consequence. Courtside seat, expensive watch, probably a beer in hand, and zero awareness that he was about to rewrite the evening script with one simple sentence. But before we get there, before the trash talk, before the explosion, we need to talk about how this game unfolded and why that fan felt bold enough to open his mouth in the first place. Because for most of the night, things were actually going Cleveland's way. And to understand how the GOAT flipped the switch, you first have to see how he almost didn't. Section 3, a rough night for the GOAT. For the first 3 quarters, it looked like Michael Jordan was off. The Cavs had a clear game plan: double him on every touch, push him to take bad mid-range shots, and cut off his drives. And for a while, it worked perfectly. Jordan couldn't find his rhythm. The shots that usually dropped effortlessly were rimming out. His teammates weren't connecting with his passes. With 5 minutes left in the third quarter, Jordan had just 11 points on a miserable 5 for 14 shooting. Chicago trailed by 3. Cleveland's bench was hyped. The crowd could feel it. Another upset brewing. Even the commentators noticed it. Jordan just didn't look like himself. Maybe it was rust. Maybe fatigue. Maybe that sting from the Magic series still lingered. And sitting courtside, that one fan, dressed in his 90s denim jacket, living his best life, started getting comfortable. The Bulls' superstar was struggling. His team looked beatable. And in his beer-fueled confidence, this man decided it was time to let the GOAT know how he felt. He leaned forward, caught Jordan's attention, and said the sentence that would change everything. Section 4. The moment he snapped. That one sentence was all it took. Jordan turned his head, eyes narrowing just enough to lock onto the fan. No smile, no words, just that cold, calculating stare that every defender in the 90s learned to fear. To the heckler, it was a harmless joke, maybe even a funny one. To Michael Jordan, it was personal, because this wasn't just about shoes. The Air Jordan 11s weren't some random sneakers. They were a symbol of his comeback, his redemption, his rebirth. Mocking them was like mocking him. And the thing about Jordan, he didn't argue. He didn't talk back. He just filed it away in that mental folder where all his grudges lived, and let the scoreboard do the talking. Within moments, his entire body language changed. His shoulders squared, his movements sharpened, and everyone in the building, his teammates, the Cavs, even the fan, could sense it. Michael Jordan had just taken it personally. Section 5, the storm unleashed. The fourth quarter began, and so did the massacre. Jordan, who had looked sluggish all game, suddenly ignited. Pull-up jumper, three-pointer, fadeaway over two defenders, then another three. Each shot was sharper than the last. Each possession a silent message to that courtside seat. Within minutes, the Bulls erased the deficit and built a double-digit lead. Jordan scored 23 points in the second half, hitting 6 threes and torching every defender the Cavs threw at him. Every time he scored, he glanced over. No words, just that look, "You did this." The crowd went from roaring to stunned silence. Cleveland's brief hope vanished, and somewhere on the sideline, one man in a denim jacket sat motionless, realizing what he'd unleashed. Section 6, the lesson. By the final minutes, the game was over. Not on the scoreboard, but in spirit. Jordan had completely dismantled the Cavaliers. Step-backs, fadeaways, transition pull-ups, everything fell. The Bulls now led by 18 points, and Cleveland had no answers left. As the clock ticked down, Jordan walked to the bench. Before sitting, he turned his head straight toward that same fan. One sharp glance, one subtle finger to his lips. No words needed, no trash talk returned. Just the GOAT reminding everyone, and especially one courtside critic, what happens when you poke the wrong bear. That night, the Cavaliers didn't just lose a game. They learned a lesson burned into NBA history. Never talk trash to Michael Jordan, and definitely never insult his shoes. Section 7. Aftermath of a mistake. When the buzzer sounded, Jordan had 37 points. The Bulls improved to 4-0, and the Cavaliers' brief moment of confidence vanished. But the real story wasn't on the stat sheet. It was sitting courtside, still frozen in disbelief. The fan who thought he could clown Michael Jordan's shoes had just watched him destroy an entire team out of spite. From that night on, Cleveland never beat Chicago again that season. Every matchup turned into a reminder, a personal encore from the GOAT. The shoe comment spread through locker rooms and highlight reels. It became a cautionary tale. Don't wake up Michael Jordan. Because once you do, you don't just lose the game, you become part of his legend. Section 8. The Concord Legacy. The irony of that night is almost poetic. The same shoes that got mocked, the ones that triggered Jordan's fury, would go on to become one of the most iconic sneakers in history. The Air Jordan 11 Concords broke every boundary of basketball design. Patent leather, icy soles, and a formal-inspired silhouette turned a game shoe into a luxury statement. They weren't just made to play in, they were made to be seen. After the 1995-96 season, the Concords became untouchable. Nike couldn't keep them in stock. Every time they were re-released, they sold out instantly. Even decades later, collectors and athletes across sports, from Kobe Bryant to Luka Doncic, wore them proudly. Those shoes symbolized excellence, dominance, and defiance, the very traits that define Michael Jordan himself. Today, a game-worn, autographed pair of those same 1995 Concords is valued at over $50,000, a price tag built on history, victory, and vengeance. So when that fan said, "I liked you better in your old shoes," he unknowingly disrespected a piece of future legend, because the Concords didn't just represent Jordan's comeback, they were his comeback. Section 9. The Season of Revenge. That night in Cleveland was more than a win. It was the turning point. From that game forward, Michael Jordan wasn't just back, he was reborn. The rest of the 1995-96 season became a masterclass in domination. Jordan led the league in scoring, averaging over 30 points per game, reclaimed the MVP award, and guided the Bulls to a 72-10 record, the best in NBA history at the time. Every team that once smelled blood now feared him again. The Magic, who'd knocked him out the previous year, eliminated. The Sonics, who dared to challenge him in the finals, buried in 6 games. And through it all, Jordan did it wearing the same sneakers that fan had mocked, the Air Jordan 11s. Each game, each shot, each highlight became a silent revenge story. By the time the Bulls lifted the trophy in June 1996, it was clear. The old MJ was gone. The new one was even more ruthless. That one night of trash talk didn't just cost Cleveland a game. It reignited a fire that burned through the entire league. Section 10. The moral of the story. In the end, it wasn't about sneakers, scores, or even championships. It was about respect. Michael Jordan built his career on finding motivation in the smallest things. A headline, a handshake, a stray comment. But this moment, it was pure poetry. A random fan, thinking he was being clever, unintentionally handed the greatest competitor in sports the fuel he needed to dominate again. That's the essence of Jordan. The man who could turn an insult into art, a single heckle into history. He didn't argue, he didn't complain, he just answered. On the court. Years later, people still talk about that game, not for the score, but for the story. A story that perfectly captures who Michael Jordan was. A man who demanded silence not with words, but with excellence. So if you ever find yourself courtside, face to face with greatness, remember this. You can cheer, you can clap, you can even admire, but whatever you do, don't talk trash to Michael Jordan. And never, ever insult his shoes.